Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of Doctor Who Terror of Zygons, or of the Zygons even. A fourth Doctor story, of course, as often is the case on this channel. Him being my favourite Doctor, so yeah, kind of jumped a bit further in time since the previous review, which was Spearhead from Space. Almost said Terror of the Autons then. But yeah, first of all, I'll be going over the packaging. You have the Zygon there, you have Tom Baker there as the fourth Doctor, you have the Scadderson, another Zygon, 2 discs, PG, the Tom Baker years 1974 to 1981, BBC logo, the new BBC logo. Then on the spine, pretty much the same information, DVD, video, Doctor Who, Tom Baker there, as well Terror of the Zygons, PG, BBC, new logo. Then on the back you've got the, what have you got? You've got the strip of screenshots of the story, you've got the synopsis, you've got the special features and commentary. Then on the inside you've got both the discs, which have sort of quite fancy disc art, as well as the writer's notes. Yeah, I mean, I watched this one earlier today, so if I'm a little bit less familiar with the story than I should be, that's probably why. However, I do think this is a cracking story, a really good sort of introduction to Tom Baker's second series, season 13. It sort of sets off this sort of series with a bang, really. The Zygons are very much, I personally think, a sort of, maybe not A-tier villain or monster, but definitely B-tier. Like, they're definitely up there. I think, obviously, the 3 main standout Doctor Who baddies would be Dalek, Cybermen, and the Master. But then after that, you definitely get people then saying maybe, you know, Zygons, Ice Warriors, Jadoon. Well, not Jadoon, Sontaran, sorry. So yeah, they're more lumped in with the sort of B tier, but they are definitely up there, to the point where, you know, obviously they came back for the 50th anniversary. They came back with Capaldi in Series 9. So they are quite iconic monsters, and I can see why. They have the capacity and ability to shapeshift, which is very scary and very eerie, you know. Adds a lot of tension and a lot of darker sort of atmospheric-y, darker gothic horror sort of moments, and that, or a lot of tension even, you know, because you don't know who's who, really. I think this story could have tapped into that a bit more. I think, oddly enough, as an English person, I do actually quite, pardon me, like the idea of them doing a Doctor Who episode set up in Scotland. I love the fact that, you know, you have this mystery, this sort of Scooby-Doo-esque mystery and that of these oil rigs going down in the ocean and that, and what the hell is that all about? And then you've got the awesome and cool line of the Doctor being all like, "What? Oil? An emergency? Ha! Well, you know, when I gave you the psionic beam, Brigadier, you know, I thought I was giving you it for only emergencies. Oil? An emergency?" And you know, Tom, again, he's had 5 stories, or 20 episodes, if you count each part as a separate episode, under his belt. Either way, he's got quite a few episodes under his belt. You know, he's got a whole series, complete series under his belt, and he's just firing on all cylinders in this story. You know, there's that infamous scene of him running down bolting down those fields, and that, you know, doing his own stunts there, from what I understand. I could be completely wrong, so please do comment below if I am, about that. The Scadderson, I think, looks decent enough. I think it's well utilised. I do think it's a bit overly used, I think, towards the end. And I do think the story sort of falls a bit flat towards the end. I do feel like, for lack of a better term, the sort of, the seams, it starts breaking at the seams, I think, you know, towards the end. In part 4, but parts 1, 2 and 3 are very strong episodes. You know, you've got the Doctor, you've got Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane, who's, you know, really good in this, as well as Ian Marter as Harry Sullivan. Then you've got, you know, Nicholas Courtney as Lethbridge Stewart, you know, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. So you've got like 4 main characters, as well as Sergeant Benton and some of the unit soldiers, so you've got quite a lot to juggle in a 4-part story, and then they add quite a lot of these different sort of local local sort of Scottish characters and that. Some live, some don't. But either way, it's interesting. It's like it really does feel like a sort of Scooby-Doo episode, really, or very much like Scooby-Doo. And I mean that as a compliment, really, to this story. Again, Tom Baker's awesome in this. He has quite a few moments. I think the only moment that stands out as a bad thing to me is the random thing about the Tibetan monk thing. I don't particularly like that myself. Others might not mind it, but yeah. What else? The zygon design, like, as a suit, as a costume, is awesome. The only thing is the voice might be a bit difficult to hear, but to be fair, you're just adding more of a personality to the aliens and that, and they look like the slimy and icky and aquatic as well. They look like a sort of sea type creature, maybe. What else? I do like the Scarson up until part 4 personally. The army unit, they're pretty decently used and utilised in this story. Harry Sullivan, his standout part is probably him being a darker version of his character for a change, and I think that's really cool and kind of needed, because I think Ian Marter as an actor is probably a better actor than they probably thought they'd get, and for the role that he ended up having to do. So I think it was them throwing him a bone in so much as giving him something else to do. I love the setting of the Scotland sort of setting and Tallochmo and that, and I totally forgot about the bagpipes right at the beginning of the story, because that was very loud when watching it. And that at first. The music, some of it is still kind of in my head. I couldn't hum it particularly, but in my head I can just about piece it together. So that's the thing. It's got some decent sort of music. It's well directed by Douglas Camfield, I think his name is. And just generally it's a really interesting story about the sort of dependence on oil and that, which I think's more significant and prevalent. Is that the right word? Or more important now than it was ever 40 years ago, I think, personally. But yeah, you get this sense of like otherworldliness and playfulness at times as well with Tom Baker's Doctor. He's not quite the season sort of 17 or 18 Tom Baker. He's a lot more light-hearted, has quite a few jokey moments with either the bad guy Proton or the companions, or the Brigadier saying, "Oh, Brigadier, you've just been taking a nap," and the Brigadier just being like, "What? I was on duty," and then the Brigadier just being like, "Oh, sometimes, Doctor, you just don't have to talk a bunch of nonsense," and then Tom and Elizabeth Sladen, so the Doctor and Sarah are just there laughing. It's nice. It's self-aware, I think, at points that what they're doing is quite silly. Yeah, I mean, originally I was going to give this an 8 out of 10, but honestly, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's a really solid story. I don't think it's the best story ever. I think what lets it down for me personally is the fact that it very much sort of has a similar sort of problem and or issue as does Robot, or a similar sort of problem as Robot does, which is that it sort of sets up this one sort of setting and this sort of world, follows it through to parts 1 through 3, and then by part 4 we kind of change location. Kind of feels like a bit of an not an oversight, but over ambitious, or just feels kind of like tacked on, at that point when they do that, I sometimes feel. So for that, I have to knock it down a point. The Tibetan monk thing kind of just came out of nowhere for me. I didn't particularly like that. Unit could have been in it a bit more, maybe, but they're in it as much as they could be, I guess. It is kind of weird, we never see the TARDIS until the end. Harry Sullivan could have been maybe in the story a bit more, But again, I do think his standout part was the whole sort of evil doppelganger version. Maybe Sarah could have been in it a bit more. But I do still think it's a very, very sort of atmospheric, dark, eerie sort of story. Tom sells a lot of the scenes and carries a lot of the story, but he is supported by, you know, again, strong side characters and companions, you know, like Sarah Jane, Harry Sullivan, and the Brigadier. The Brigadier is pretty decent in the scenes that he's in. I mean, he could have been in it more, but again, it is a very tough juggling act, I think, this story. It's ambitious, and it succeeds for the most part. I just think it sort of falls flat a little bit towards the end. Not a lot, but a little bit, just like how Robot kind of did. But again, much like Robot, I think it's a very, very strong series opener to what is otherwise a very strong series overall, I think, which will be interesting if and when I ever do an overview of Season 13 of the classic series. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate, and subscribe. And I gave Terror of the Zygons a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe again.